At the class reunion, someone asked the former top student, "Claire, we're all in our 30s now, and everyone who should be married is married, so why are you still single?" Claire Summers smiled faintly. "I'm still waiting for the person I gave my love letter to when I was 18 to write me back." As she spoke, she looked toward Ethan Carter, who was sitting beside me, and her eyes slowly turned red. Ethan froze and murmured, "I never received it." The truth from back then slowly began to unravel. It turned out Claire's letter had been delivered to the wrong place. It was that tiny mistake that kept them from being together. The room instantly erupted with teasing. "You and him were seriously the couple I shipped the hardest back then." I was so upset when Lily cut in later. "Lily totally took advantage of the situation, and you clearly knew Ethan first. A love letter just happened to be put in the wrong place? Don't you think someone switched it on purpose?" Everyone in the room turned to look at me. Amid the noise, I gently touched the man beside me and asked in a low voice, "Honey, they're saying I got between you two back then, so what do you think?" Ethan did not answer me and instead stared at Claire. His eyes were also a little red. The classmates were the ones who lost their composure first, crying out one after another, "Lily, you and Ethan are married?" Claire also jerked her head up and fixed her gaze on Ethan, disbelief flashing through her eyes. A few classmates laughed awkwardly again. "Why didn't you tell any of us? We've been classmates for so many years, and you two really kept us in the dark." "Yeah, unless Ethan didn't actually want to." When Claire went abroad back then, he was heartbroken for a long time, and I heard he almost tried to kill himself. Then wasn't it only natural for Ethan to choose Lily? Why are you speaking up for Lily? Everyone knows Claire's family was too poor back then, and Lily basically took advantage of her when she was down. I ignored all those comments and only looked at Ethan, wondering when he would explain things for me. He was the one who pursued me back then, and after we dated for 2 years, we had been married for 3. It was not like every first love who returned from overseas could pick up where things left off. Besides, Ethan and I could be considered childhood sweethearts too, and I was the one who asked him to come with me to this reunion today, or Claire would not even have had the chance to see Ethan. But Ethan, who sat beside me, remained silent, and I turned my face to look at him. Too many emotions churned in his eyes. Surprise, heartache, and regret that had been buried for years but had never faded. Yet he still did not explain. The atmosphere gradually cooled. I pressed my lips together and put down my utensils too. Could it be that he really still could not let go? I had almost forgotten. Back in college, Ethan liked Claire so much that almost the entire school knew. She always wore washed-out shirts, and her lunch was always just a single slice of bread. Ethan found all kinds of ways to bring her meals, books, and contest prize money, and he even secretly stuffed his own allowance into her desk. But Claire never appreciated it. She returned the lunchbox to him untouched and looked at him coldly. "Keep your pity to yourself. You're no different from them." But Ethan still refused to give up. It was not until the end of freshman year that Claire was finally moved, and they slowly became friends. After that, during sophomore year, Claire suddenly disappeared. She left without saying goodbye and gave no explanation, leaving only one note. "I'm starting to hate you, so please forget me." Ethan chased her all the way to the airport, only to see the plane streak across the sky. He broke down crying on the spot, and when he went home, he fell into depression. It was true that I took advantage of him at his lowest point, pushed open the door he had shut himself behind, and pulled him back from the edge of the rooftop. "If she doesn't want you, I do, so what do you like about her? Her stubbornness? I can change myself to match." From that day on, I lived as another Claire Summers. I learned the way Claire spoke, grew my hair long like hers, and even wore the white dresses she liked. And my family's business barely survived with the Carter family's support. When the Carter family arranged a marriage alliance later, I had originally planned to step aside tactfully, but he grabbed me and held me tightly. That night, he cried and begged me to love him a little and not abandon him too. "I don't want to be abandoned again, so please marry me." I sighed and touched his face. "Ethan, we can still be friends. But I love you." "What about Claire?" He tightened the arm around my waist even more and kissed me. "I hate her, and from now on, I only want Lily." After that night passed, the Carter family accepted me as their daughter-in-law. People in our circle all said behind my back that I was shameless and manipulative, that the Bennett family had nearly gone bankrupt, and that I had forced myself on Ethan to revive Bennett Group. They were all waiting. They were waiting for me to get divorced and become a joke. But over the past 5 years, Ethan and I had only grown better and more loving. Until I saw the way he looked at Claire at this moment. My heart suddenly tightened with pain. How ridiculous. Ethan Carter, never pick up trash. Ethan's words instantly froze the smile on Claire's face. Ethan's words made the private room fall completely silent. He took my hand and laced his fingers with mine. Let me introduce her. This is my wife, Lily Bennett. If anyone uses those old stories to disgust her again, don't blame me for turning on you. I married Lily because I love her, and who hasn't met one or two toxic women when they were young? Don't open your mouths and throw dirt on my wife for no reason. His tone shifted, carrying blatant mockery. As for Miss Summers, did going abroad leave you with nothing but this? So, what if you started a company? Do you even have assets over 10 million? Do you even have 10 employees under you? Claire could no longer smile at all. But Ethan took my hand and softened his voice. Honey, I told you I didn't want to come, so what was the point of seeing these people? You're not wrong, I answered softly. Whoever you scold deserves it. The entire room fell into silence, and the class reunion was basically over. The classmates who had been gossiping earlier came over to apologize before leaving and wished us happiness. Claire sat in her seat with her head lowered and did not move. But when Ethan stepped out of the private room, he still turned his head back once. Regret and sorrow made that woman look much more haggard in just a few hours. I clearly felt Ethan's hand tighten around my waist. Then he turned his gaze forward, acted as if nothing had happened, and got into the car with me with a smile. But after we got home, I still felt a little uneasy when I thought about what had happened. I put down my bag, and my voice was hoarse. Ethan, if you want to get back together with Claire, we can get D. Before I could finish, he suddenly pushed me down onto the sofa, gripped the side of my neck, and leaned in. His fingers sealed my lips, then moved down along my collarbone, and paired with his cold, restrained face, my breath immediately caught. What nonsense are you talking about? He moved close to me, his breath warm. Can I carry you back to the bedroom? I want you. After he said that, he kissed me. We tangled all the way to the bedroom. For one moment, I almost forgot all the unpleasantness, and just as the corners of my lips lifted into a smile, Ethan's phone suddenly rang. I answered it instinctively. Soft breathing came from the other end of the line, and Claire's voice carried drunkenness and broken sobs. Ethan, couldn't you have waited for me a little longer? It's only been 5 years. You call me toxic, but you don't know it all. The only person I've ever loved is you. I was silent for a moment before speaking. Claire, it's 3 a.m. My husband just fell asleep from exhaustion. So, do you need me to wake him up? The other side went instantly quiet, then the call was abruptly hung up. My expression turned serious for once, and I frowned tightly as I looked at the sleeping Ethan beside me. His lashes trembled lightly, and his lips pressed into a straight line, as if he was having a nightmare. I lay down, curled into his arms, stopped thinking about it, and closed my eyes wearily. But after sleeping for less than 2 hours, I woke up. I instinctively reached for the person beside me, only to find the bed empty. Where had Ethan gone in the middle of the night? For some reason, panic rose in my chest. At that moment, I faintly heard voices outside, and because I was worried a burglar had broken in, I rushed to the door without even putting on shoes and opened a crack. The moment I saw the scene in the living room, I could not describe how I felt. I only felt that the summer air conditioning and the floor under my bare feet were like falling into an ice cellar. Claire sat on the sofa with messy hair and red eyes, as if she had been crying for a long time. Ethan stood in front of her, his expression terrifyingly cold. Are you done? He said in a very low voice. If you're done, go home. I'm sorry, Ethan. I regret it. So can't you give me one chance? Ethan coldly pulled his sleeve back and was using Claire's phone to call someone. Hurry up and come get your fiancée, and don't let her come to someone else's front door drunk in the middle of the night. Not long after, hurried footsteps came. I opened the door crack a little wider and realized I actually knew this man. It was Sebastian Ford, who also lived in this villa district. He was the only son of the biggest tourist resort developer in New York, and his family background was even more prominent than the Carters. Looking at his anxious, red-rimmed eyes, I could not help sighing inwardly. How much good karma had Claire built up in her past life? She had been a little poor in her teens, but in college, Ethan paved the way for her and nearly lived and died for her. Now, after going abroad and polishing her resume a little, she directly made this heir of the Ford family worry over her. People really were different from one another, and I did not go out to create a famous old love new love disaster scene before quietly closing the door. But then a message from my best friend suddenly popped up on my phone. That bitch Claire got drunk at a bar tonight and cried into the camera while confessing her love to Ethan, and the video has already been posted online. I've never seen such a disgusting woman, and now that she's almost 30 and her career isn't going well, she probably regretted everything after seeing you and Ethan being happy together. I cut off her outrage and sent her the living room scene I had just filmed. Claire seems to have a boyfriend, and it's Sebastian Ford. Holy shit. Does that bitch have some kind of poison on her that lowers men's IQ? Is Sebastian Ford blind or what? After hearing the sounds outside gradually disappear, I quietly returned to bed. However, early the next morning, I was woken by the sound of arguing outside. I opened the door half asleep and saw Ethan's parents sitting on the sofa with ashen faces. They must have seen today's trending topic. Get Claire Summers out of New York right now. Ethan's father said sternly. What the hell was that video of her crying in a bar last night? The shareholders are all asking about this. She was the one who abandoned you and went abroad back then, Ethan. So don't be foolish, and now she's actually using such low tactics to ruin your marriage with Lily. If you don't clean this up properly, don't blame Carter Group's official channels for blacklisting her. After dropping those words, Ethan's father left. Ethan clenched his fists and turned around with red eyes, only to suddenly see me. Honey. A trace of panic flashed through his eyes. The trending topic has nothing to do with me, and Claire is already engaged to Sebastian Ford, so I don't know why she keeps pestering me like this. I'll handle this properly. Ethan had already been gradually taking over Carter Group, and after this incident, he seemed to have truly gone head-to-head with the Ford family. He personally dragged me into several couple endorsements for the company, improved the corporate image, and secretly stole the Ford family's business to pressure Sebastian into sending Claire away. Until 1 month later. That day, a group of us had just finished gathering at a private club, and when Ethan and I opened the door of the private room, Claire suddenly stumbled out from the end of the hallway. She wore a white dress, her clothes were disheveled, and there were scratches and blood marks on her face. Ethan, save me. Please save me. This scene felt so familiar. It made me feel as if I had returned to 5 years ago, and I had to admit that Claire in college was like a wild crabapple blooming in barren soil, stubborn and proud. That was why Ethan had fallen for her. She gritted her teeth and used all her strength to grab Ethan's sleeve, but after seeing me, her entire body stiffened before she hurriedly lowered her head, let go, and stepped back. Miss Bennett, I didn't mean to, and I'll leave New York right away and never again. A tear fell from the corner of her eye, and she clenched her fists and closed her eyes. I'll never appear in front of Ethan again. Then she turned and limped toward the door. Looking at her back, as if she were the only person left alone in the world, I was stunned. Mainly, I never expected that Claire would one day become scheming enough to stage a scene like this and frame me. Her acting was so convincing that it was as if I had really sent people to teach her a lesson and warn her to stay away from my husband. On the surface, she was asking Ethan for help, but in reality, she was shaping me into a sinister, vicious woman. But she was now Sebastian Ford's fiancée, and the Bennett family could not afford to offend the Ford family at all. I forced out a mocking smile and turned to observe Ethan's reaction. His face was expressionless, making it impossible for me to see what he was thinking. I heard Carter Group blacklisted her, and her company is about to go bankrupt, so she's been begging people everywhere lately. Ethan took my hand and smiled coldly. What does that have to do with me? After we got in the car, I tested him again. Then, Ethan, about what just happened, do you also think I did it? But he held me in his arms. I believe it wasn't you. I nodded. After all, the Ford family was someone neither Carter Group nor Bennett Group could afford to offend, and I was not that stupid. And Ethan had witnessed me barely making it step by step from the edge of bankruptcy to where I was today, so he should understand better than I did how much I cherish the present. However, the next day, $400 million was suddenly transferred out of my account. Bennett Group was about to go public, and that $400 million almost determined whether Bennett Group lived or died. I called Ethan, but no one answered, so in my panic, I drove straight to his company to find him. When I pushed open the office door, I saw Claire sitting there with tears streaming down her face, and the wounds on her face had just been bandaged. Ethan sat beside her and lifted his head to meet my gaze. $400 million was suddenly transferred out of my account, and was it you? Although I already had a guess in my heart, I wanted to hear Ethan admit it himself. I took it. Why? Coldness seeped through Ethan's eyes. Claire's company owed $400 million, so I helped her pay it back. Even Claire raised her head in shock, pulled out her phone, and immediately checked her company's repayment records. The assistants beside them exchanged looks. I looked at Ethan in confusion, but I saw him tighten his grip on Claire's hand beside him and protect her behind him like a guardian. Lily Bennett, this is what you owe her. After saying that, he threw a stack of documents hard onto the coffee table and photos scattered across the floor with a rustle. The first photo showed Claire at the club, being pinned to the floor with someone's foot on her face, her white dress covered in filthy cigarette ash, her clothes disheveled, and her eyes unfocused. The second photo showed her being yanked by her long hair, her chin forced open, as if she was being fed some kind of drug. The third photo showed extreme terror all over her face, and her neckline had been roughly torn open, exposing her collarbone and the edge of her underwear. Among the open documents were 2 fingerprinted confessions, where 2 thugs admitted in black and white that they had been instructed by me to teach Claire Summers a little lesson. He actually believed such a cheap frame-up. The silence in the office was so thick it felt tangible, heavy enough to crush the lungs. I stood near the mahogany desk, staring at the scattered photographs on the coffee table. The paper edges caught the dim ambient light of the room. In every image, Claire Summers looked ruined, pitiful, and fragile, a broken porcelain doll crushed under someone's boot. And right beside her sat Ethan Carter, holding her bruised hand as if she were made of glass, looking at me with eyes cold enough to freeze blood. You took $400 million from Bennett Group's account. My voice did not shake. It was flat, stripped of all warmth, hollowed out by a sudden, sickening clarity. That money was raised for our IPO next week. It's my family's lifeblood, Ethan. Your family's lifeblood? Ethan let out a bitter, mocking laugh. He didn't even bother to stand up. Lily, don't pretend to be innocent. 2 years ago, when the Bennett family was on the verge of bankruptcy, who gave your father the capital to survive? It was the Carter family. I gave you everything. And how do you repay it? By paying thugs to strip Claire, drug her, and beat her in a club hallway? Claire cowered slightly behind Ethan's shoulder, her shoulders trembling violently. Ethan, please don't argue with Ms. Bennett because of me. It's my fault. I shouldn't have come back to New York. I deserve this. Shut up, Claire, Ethan said softly, his tone softening instantly as he patted her hand, before turning his icy glare back onto me. You see this? She's still making excuses for you. Lily, I used to think that even if you were scheming, when we were younger, you at least had a bottom line. But you've turned into a monster. I looked at the 2 confessions on the table. The signatures were messy, the fingerprints smeared with dark red ink. Any reasonable corporate executive would see through such a clumsy frame-up in 5 minutes. The club was located in the most expensive commercial district in New York. Every corridor had 4 high-definition cameras. If I had really hired hitmen, would I leave 2 signed, fingerprinted statements right in Ethan's lap? He didn't care about the truth. He didn't need proof. He only needed an excuse to justify the guilt that had been eating at him for 5 years, an excuse to make himself feel like a knight rescuing his tragic first love. Ethan, I said, stepping closer to the desk. I didn't look at Claire once. My eyes stayed fixed on the man I had lived with for 5 years. 400 million. Return it today, or Bennett Group's listing will fail, and our credit line will be frozen. Return it. Ethan sneered. He stood up, towering over me, his shadow blotting out the light. Consider that 400 million your compensation to Claire. If you want the money back, go apologize to her in public. Admit what you did on camera. Otherwise, don't even think about seeing a single cent. I stared at him for a long, silent moment. 5 years. For 5 whole years, I had cut my hair long because Claire had long hair. I had worn floor-length white dresses because Claire liked white. I had learned to speak softly, to cook bitter tea, to hold my tongue when he looked at the sky and sighed. I thought I was healing him. I thought my devotion had earned me a place in his heart. In reality, I was just a cheap, convenient band-aid he used while waiting for the original wound to heal. All right, I said quietly. Ethan frowned, caught off guard by my sudden calm. What did you say? I said, all right. I turned around, picked up my handbag, and walked toward the door. Lily Bennett, stand right there. Ethan's voice rang out behind me, sharp and demanding. Are you throwing a tantrum again? I'm telling you, if you walk out that door today without apologizing, don't come back to the Carter estate. I didn't stop. I opened the glass door, stepped past the terrified assistants, standing in the hallway, and walked straight out into the sweltering afternoon sun. The moment I stepped out of the Carter Group building, my phone rang frantically. It was my secretary, her voice hysterical. President Bennett, something terrible has happened. The $400 million fund for the IPO was transferred out an hour ago by Mr. Carter's authorized account. The bank has halted our listing application, and the board of directors is panicking. Your father fainted at the board meeting. The bright summer sunlight suddenly felt blindingly cold. Call an ambulance, I heard myself say, my voice terrifyingly steady. I'm on my way to the hospital. The smell of disinfectant inside the emergency ward was suffocating. My father lay on the hospital bed, an oxygen mask covering half his face. His hair, which had been mostly dark a month ago, now looked completely white under the harsh fluorescent lights. The doctor came out, wiping sweat from his forehead. Miss Bennett, your father suffered an acute cerebral hemorrhage due to sudden, extreme emotional distress. We managed to stabilize him, but he cannot take any more shocks. If the company's financial situation cannot be resolved, I suggest you prepare yourself mentally. I sat on the cold metal bench outside the ICU, staring at my hands. Around 10 p.m., my phone screen lit up. It was an incoming call from Ethan. I answered it and put it to my ear, remaining silent. Lily. Ethan's voice came through the speaker, crisp, cool, and condescending. I heard your father is in the hospital. How is he? He's alive, I answered. Ethan let out a soft sigh, sounding like a lenient elder forgiving a rebellious child. You see? This is what happens when you act out of impulse. If you hadn't targeted Claire, none of this would have happened. I'm not a heartless man. Lily, you've been my wife for 3 years. As long as you post a public apology, video clearing Claire's name, and sign a voluntary asset transfer agreement for 10% of Bennett Group's shares to compensate her company, I'll instruct the bank to release $200 million back to your company as a loan. He was asking me to destroy my own reputation, hand over my company's equity to his mistress, and borrow my own stolen money at interest. A quiet chuckle escaped my lips. What are you laughing at? Ethan's voice hardened instantly. I'm laughing at myself, Ethan, I said, looking up at the sterile ceiling of the hallway. I'm laughing at how blind I was for 5 years to mistake a coward for a man. Lily Bennett. Keep the $400 million. I cut him off, my voice dropping an octave, smooth and sharp as broken glass. Keep it to buy Claire's coffin. And prepare your lawyers, Ethan. Tomorrow morning, you will receive 2 things: a criminal complaint for unauthorized corporate asset embezzlement and a petition for divorce. Are you crazy? Ethan barked into the phone. Do you think any law firm in New York dares to take a case against Carter Group? Without my backing, Bennett Group will fall apart in 3 days. Then let's watch it fall, I replied softly. And let's see who burns with it. I hung up the phone and blocked his number immediately. That night, I drove back to the Carter estate alone. The massive villa was empty, silent as a tomb. I went up to the master bedroom, opened the massive walk-in closet, and dragged down every single white dress I owned. Dozens of them, silk, chiffon, lace, all chosen to match the haunting memory of Claire Summers. I dragged them down to the courtyard, dumped them into the copper fire pit used for winter bonfires, lit a match, and tossed it in. The orange flames roared to life, eating through the delicate white fabrics, turning 5 years of my self-imposed humiliation into plumes of black smoke, rising into the midnight sky. I pulled out a pair of kitchen shears from my bag, gathered my waist-length long hair into a tight bundle, and sliced it off right at my shoulders. The dark locks tumbled into the fire, sizzled, and vanished into ash. When the sun broke over the horizon the next morning, I was no longer the soft, obedient Mrs. Carter. I was Lily Bennett, the sole heir of Bennett Group, and I was ready for blood. By 9 a.m., the business world of New York was rocked by an unexpected earthquake. Bennett Group, which had been expected to file for its IPO that afternoon, officially issued a public announcement detailing an illegal transfer of $400 million from its capital reserves. Attached to the announcement was an official legal summons directed at Ethan Carter, the executive director of Carter Group, charging him with corporate embezzlement and breach of fiduciary duty. Simultaneously, my lawyer filed for divorce on the grounds of marital infidelity and severe financial betrayal, demanding an immediate freeze on all joint marital assets, including Ethan's private holdings in 3 subsidiary companies. The news broke the internet within hours. Hashtag Bennett Group files for divorce. Hashtag Ethan Carter embezzlement. Hashtag Claire Summers first love drama. The comment section exploded. Wait, so Ethan Carter used his wife's company funds to pay off his ex-girlfriend's debts? Is he insane? $400 million? That's not a romantic gesture. That's a felony. I thought Lily Bennett was the third wheel, but it turns out she built Bennett Group up herself while her husband was playing hero for his broke ex. In the top floor office of Carter Group, paper hit the wall with a deafening thud. Old man Carter, Ethan's father, slammed his cane onto the marble floor, his face flushed with rage. You idiot! You absolute fool. Old man Carter roared, pointing a trembling finger at Ethan. $400 million from Bennett Group's escrow account. Did you think you owned that money just because you're married to Lily? Do you know how many regulatory boards are looking into us right now?
Our
Stock dropped 8% in 2 hours. Ethan stood by the window, his jaw clenched tightly. His face was pale, dark, circles shadowing his eyes. He hadn't slept all night. Father, Lily is just threatening me, Ethan said through gritted teeth though. His voice lacked conviction. She's trying to force me to compromise.
she has
Nowhere else to go. Her father is in the ICU, and Bennett Group's liquidity is completely severed. In 3 days, she'll come back crying and asking for a settlement. Comply? Settlement. Old man Carter slapped a stack of legal documents onto the
desk.
Look at this. She didn't go to a mediator. She went straight to the federal district prosecutor. The formal investigation opens on Monday.
If you
Can't return that $400 million to Bennett Group's account before then, you'll be facing corporate fraud charges. Ethan's eyes widened slightly. She actually reported it? Just then, the office door clicked open softly. Claire walked in, wearing a delicate lavender dress, holding a thermos of soup. Her eyes were red, looking perpetually pitiful. Uncle Carter, Ethan, please don't fight, Claire sobbed softly, placing the thermos on the table. It's all my fault. I didn't know the money came from Bennett Group. I thought it was Ethan's personal savings. If I knew it would hurt Miss Bennett, I would rather have gone to prison. Old man Carter glared at Claire with absolute disgust. Shut your mouth.
who
Allowed you into this building? Ethan, get this woman out of my sight right now. If she stays around you for one more day, I will strip you of your executive title and hand the company over to your cousin. Old man Carter stormed out, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled. Claire lowered her head, tears streaming down her bruised cheeks. Ethan,
I'm sorry.
I really didn't mean to cause trouble. Should I go beg Miss Bennett?
I can
Kneel in front of her hospital room, looking at her fragile, trembling frame. The irritation in Ethan's heart softened slightly, but for the first time, a faint trace of exhaustion crept into his chest. No need, Ethan said, turning his back to her as he looked out the window. Lily wants to play hardball. I'll see how long she can hold out. While Ethan was waiting for me to collapse, I was sitting in a high-rise office in Midtown New York, meeting with a private investigator named Marcus and my best friend, Jane. Jane handed me a cup of hot black coffee, looking at my short hair with eyes full of anger and admiration. Lily, you look 10 times better without that long
hair.
You finally look like yourself again. Thanks. I took a sip of the bitter coffee, feeling the heat spread through my chest. Marcus, what did you find? Marcus placed a thick yellow folder on the table and opened it. Ms. Bennett, you are completely right to be suspicious, Marcus said, pointing at a series of bank statements and chat logs. First, regarding the assault at the club 3 days ago. Those 2 thugs who signed the confession were not hired by you, nor were they random street thugs. He flipped to a photograph of a middle-aged man with a tattoo on his neck. They are debt collectors from an offshore illegal gambling syndicate in Macau. Over the past 3 years abroad, Claire Summers was not running a legitimate technology startup. She was addicted to high-stakes baccarat. Her company was just a shell corporation used to wash her gambling debts. Jane gasped, clapping a hand over her mouth. What? She's a gambler? More than that, Marcus continued, smiling coldly. The debt she owed was $400 million. The loan sharks were threatening to leak her private photos and break her legs. She needed a massive payout immediately.
So she
staged the assault herself. She hired those 2 debt collectors to hit her, take photos, and sign fake confessions framing you, knowing Ethan Carter would swallow the bait whole. I stared at the documents, my heart cold as stone. It was almost funny. Ethan thought he was saving an angelic first love from a cruel, jealous wife. In reality, he was just a giant fat pig being led to the slaughterhouse by a seasoned con artist. And what about Sebastian Ford? I asked. What's his role in this? Marcus's expression turned serious. That's the most interesting part. Sebastian Ford isn't Claire's hopelessly devoted fiancé. The Ford family's resort development project in upstate New York ran into a massive liquidity bottleneck. Last month, Sebastian knew Claire had a hold on Ethan. He intentionally let Claire pester Ethan, using the drama to destabilize Carter Group stock and Distract Ethan while Ford Enterprises secretly poached 3 of Carter Group's biggest logistics clients. So Sebastian Ford and Claire Summers were working together, I summarized.
Smoothly.
Claire gets her $400 million debt paid, Sebastian gets Carter Group's market share, and Ethan Carter gets to play the tragic hero while bankrupting his own wife. Precisely, Marcus nodded. And there's one more thing. I tracked down the old high school records regarding that missing love letter from 18 years ago. My fingers tightened around the coffee cup. The love letter? Yes. Marcus pulled out a dusty photocopy of an old school ledger.
Claire.
Never put that letter in the wrong place by mistake.
18 years ago, she
didn't write that love letter to Ethan Carter. She wrote it to the son of the richest real estate tycoon in their city back then. But that boy rejected her. Publicly, and threw the letter in the trash. Ethan found it in the trash bin, saw his own name mentioned as a friend in the body of the letter, and foolishly believed it was meant for him all along. A dry, bitter laugh bubbled up from my throat. 18 years of obsession. 5 years of broken hearts, tears, and lingering
regret.
The entire grand, romantic tragedy that Ethan Carter had built his life around was nothing more than a trash can mistake. Lily. Jane looked at me, her eyes burning with excitement. What do we do now? Do we send these documents to Ethan right now and smash his stupid little dream world to pieces? Send it to him now. I leaned back in the executive leather chair, a cold, sharp smile spreading across my face.
No.
If I break his illusion now, he'll just think I'm trying to win him back. I looked out the floor-to-ceiling window at the skyline of New York. Wait until the Carter Group's mid-year gala next Friday. When he's standing at the very peak of his pride, in front of every business mogul in the state, that's when we pull the rug. Over the next 5 days, Ethan waited for my call. He kept his phone on his desk during every meeting, checking the screen every 10 minutes. Day 1. No calls from Lily Bennett. Day 2. Bennett Group's legal team filed an injunction to seize 3 of Carter Group's secondary accounts. Day 3. Bennett Group announced a strategic partnership with an overseas venture capital firm, Vanguard Holdings, receiving an immediate cash infusion of $500 million, completely bypassing the need for Carter Group's capital. When Ethan saw the press release on his computer, he slammed his coffee cup onto the desk, hot liquid splashing across his suit pants. Vanguard Holdings? Where did she get a connection with Vanguard? Ethan shouted at his assistant. The assistant trembled. Mr. Carter, Vanguard's regional director personally, attended the signing ceremony, and Ms. Bennett was there. She looked completely fine. Completely fine? Ethan gritted his teeth. In his mind, Lily should have been red-eyed, exhausted, begging him at the hospital entrance, wearing her white dress, crying that she was wrong. How could she secure $500 million from an international conglomerate in 3 days? Driven by a sudden, uncontrollable surge of anxiety, Ethan grabbed his coat and drove straight to the hospital where my father was staying. He pushed open the door to the VIP suite, expecting to see a scene of despair. Instead, he saw me standing by the window, wearing a crisp, charcoal gray, tailored pantsuit, my short hair styled neatly, holding an iPad as I delivered commands to 3 senior executives standing around the bed. My father was sitting up, sipping soup, his face looking healthier than ever. The air in the room was sharp, efficient, and powerful. Ethan stood at the doorway, suddenly feeling like an intruder. I turned my head, my cool gaze sweeping over him, as if he were a stranger who had walked into the wrong room. Mr. Carter, I said, my voice smooth and formal. Visiting hours for non-family members start at 4 p.m. Please step outside. Ethan's chest heaved. He stared at my short hair, my dark suit, and the utter absence of any emotion in my eyes. Panic, real, cold panic, sprouted in his gut. For the very first time. Lily, your hair, Ethan stammered, stepping forward. Why did you cut your hair? You know I like it long. What Mr. Carter likes is irrelevant to me. I interrupted calmly, turning back to my screen. Assistant, please escort Mr. Carter out. We have a board briefing to conduct. Lily Bennett. Ethan took 3 quick steps forward, gripping my wrist tightly. Stop playing games. You got funding from Vanguard, so what? Do you think you can completely sever ties with me? We're still married. You're still my wife. I looked down at his hand gripping my wrist, then looked up into his agitated
eyes.
Wife. I smiled faintly, my tone light as a feather. Ethan, did you forget? You took $400 million of my money to buy out your first love's
debt.
You told me I was a monster. You told me to apologize on camera.
Now.
You're standing here telling me I'm your wife. I pulled my wrist back with a swift, cold motion. Our court date for the divorce hearing is set for next month. Until then, if you touch me again, my security detail will file a restraining order. Ethan froze, his hand hanging in midair. He looked at me, really looked at me, and realized that the woman who used to stay up until 2 a.m. waiting to brew him ginger tea, the woman who learned how to wear white dresses just to catch a flicker of warmth in his eyes, was completely
Gone.
She hadn't been defeated. She had simply thrown him away. While Ethan was drowning in an eerie sense of loss, his life at home was rapidly turning into a nightmare. Since he had publicly defended Claire, she had moved into his private penthouse, under the guise of recovering from trauma. At first, Ethan felt a deep sense of poetic fulfillment. He was protecting his teenage dream, rectifying the mistake of 18 years ago. But reality was far from a poetic dream. Claire was used to a life of luxury and endless squandering. Within 4 days, she maxed out 2 of Ethan's secondary credit cards, purchasing limited edition handbags, diamond jewelry, and high-end wines. When Ethan came home late, after dealing with Carter Group's falling stock price, he didn't find a warm meal or a quiet home. He found Claire drinking wine on the sofa, leaving dirty glasses on the marble countertop, complaining about the noise of the city. Ethan, Claire pouted, wrapping her arms around his neck, smelling heavily of alcohol. When are you going to officially announce our relationship? Those reporters are still calling me a mistress online. It's so annoying. Ethan gently pushed her arms away, rubbing his thumping temples. Claire, the company is facing a severe audit right now because of that 400 million. Can you give me some space? Claire's face instantly darkened. Her pitiful demeanor vanished, replaced by a sharp, demanding tone. Space? Ethan Carter, I gave up my career abroad and came back for you. I even took a beating from Lily Bennett's thugs for you.
Now.
You're telling me to give you space? Are you regretting it?
Do you still miss
Lily? I don't miss her, Ethan yelled, his patience snapping. Then prove it. Claire sneered, dragging out a document from her purse.
Sign
this investment agreement. Transfer 20% of Carter Logistics shares to my company name. Sebastian said that as long as we combine our logistics lines, we can beat Vanguard Holdings. Ethan stared at the contract on the table. For the first time, a cold shudder ran down his spine. Sebastian Ford. Why was Claire constantly bringing up Sebastian Ford's business advice? Why was she so eager to get her hands on Carter Group's core equity? That night, while Claire was sound asleep, Ethan silently got out of bed, picked up Claire's unlocked phone, and stepped into the balcony. He opened her encrypted messaging app. The latest chat history with Sebastian Ford appeared on the lit screen. Sebastian, did you get the 400 million from Ethan? Claire, yeah, the idiot transferred it directly from Lily's company account. Lily filed a lawsuit against him, and Carter Group stock is down 12%. Sebastian, good job, babe. Once we get the logistics equity from him at the gala on Friday, Carter Group will be completely hollowed out. We can leave for Switzerland by the end of the month. Claire, can't wait. Dealing with Ethan's pathetic first love complex every day is making me sick. He actually believed that love letter story from high school. What a loser. The cold wind on the balcony blew across Ethan's face. He stood there holding the phone, his hands shaking so violently that he almost
dropped the device.
The world around him shattered into a million sharp, jagged pieces. Every sacrifice he had made, every cruel word he had spat at Lily, every night he had spent pining for his lost youth, it was all a grotesque, ridiculous joke. He hadn't been protecting a sacred first love. He had been a gullible, foolish cash cow, being milked dry by a traitor and her lover while throwing away the only woman who had ever truly loved him. Ethan slumped against the balcony railing, grabbing his head as he let out a strangled, breathless sob. The annual Carter Group mid-year charity gala was held at the grand ballrooms of the St. Regis, New York. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over hundreds of high society guests, business tycoons, and media reporters. Cameras flashed endlessly near the red carpet. Ethan stood near the entrance, wearing a sharp black tuxedo, but his face was deathly pale, his eyes bloodshot and hollow. Beside him, Claire was dressed in a shimmering silver gown, dripping in diamonds, smiling proudly for the cameras, clinging to Ethan's arm like a queen. Sebastian Ford stood nearby in a velvet suit, holding a champagne glass. exchanging subtle, triumphant smirks with Claire across the room. Look, Mr. Carter looks so tired lately. Well, embezzling 400 million for an ex-girlfriend will do that to a man. I heard Bennett Group's IPO is back on track, thanks to Vanguard. Ethan Carter really ruined his own golden goose. The whispering of the guests buzzed like mosquitoes in Ethan's ears. Every word felt like a slap to his face. Suddenly, the heavy double doors at the entrance of the ballroom swung open. The room fell dead silent. A woman stepped onto the red carpet. I wore an exquisite, midnight black backless silk gown that hugged every curve of my figure. My short hair was sleek and modern, framing a face that was radiant, calm, and utterly breathtaking. Around my neck hung a teardrop emerald necklace worth millions, a signature piece from Vanguard Holdings' private vault. Beside me walked Alexander Vance, the enigmatic, incredibly powerful chairman of Vanguard Holdings, a man whose wealth and influence eclipsed the Carter and Ford families combined. Is that Lily Bennett? My God, she looks stunning. She looks like an absolute empress. Look at that composure. Claire's smile froze on her face. Her grip on Ethan's arm tightened so hard her knuckles turned white. Her eyes burned with raw, uncontrollable jealousy. Ethan stared at me, his breath catching in his throat. In the past 5 years, he had only ever seen me in soft, plain white dresses, looking quiet and compliant. He had forgotten, or perhaps he had never chosen to, see that before I married him, I was the most brilliant, razor-sharp young heiress in New York's commercial scene. I walked past the crowd, my high heels clicking rhythmically against the marble floor, stopping right in front of Ethan and Claire. Good evening, Mr. Carter, I said, my tone polite, cool, and distant as an iceberg. Ethan's lips trembled. Lily, you came. Of course I came. I smiled faintly, taking a glass of champagne from a passing waiter's tray. I couldn't miss such an entertaining evening. Claire stepped forward, putting on her soft, victim persona, though her trembling voice betrayed her anger. Miss Bennett, I know you still hold a grudge against Ethan and me, but tonight is Carter Group's big night. Please don't cause a scene. Cause a scene? I chuckled softly, glancing at her with utter disdain. MS. Summers, you overestimate your importance. I'm not here for you. I'm here to return a gift. I raised my hand and snapped my fingers. Behind me, 2 men in crisp black suits stepped forward, holding a large black velvet box. The entire ballroom gathered around us, sensing the thick, explosive tension in
The air.
reporters pressed forward, raising their lenses. Ethan looked at the black box, a terrible sense of foreboding overwhelming him. Lily, what is this? Open it, I said simply. Ethan's hand trembled as he reached out and lifted the lid of the box. Inside lay a high-definition tablet screen and a stack of legal documents, printed in heavy ink. Before Ethan could react, the master audiovisual controller of the ballroom, who my team had quietly paid off earlier, switched the massive projector screens behind the main stage from the Carter Group promotional video to a new media feed.
Beep.
A high-definition video began playing on every screen in the ballroom. It was the raw, unedited security footage from the private club hallway 3 weeks ago. On the screen, Claire Summers was standing completely fine, drinking champagne, with 2 men in leather jackets. She was smiling as she handed them a thick stack of cash. Then, she intentionally tore her own dress, rubbed dirt onto her face, and instructed the 2 men, hit my face, make it look bad, and make sure you sign the confession saying Lily Bennett paid you. The entire ballroom erupted into an uproar. What the hell? She framed Lily Bennett herself. Look at that. She paid them. Claire's face turned paper white. She stumbled back, dropping her champagne glass, which shattered loudly on the floor. No, that's fake. That's AI. Generated. Ethan, don't look. It's a setup. Is this fake too? I asked calmly, tapping the tablet in the box. An audio recording played loudly through the ballroom speakers, the recorded phone conversation between Claire Summers and Sebastian Ford from 3 nights ago. Did you get the 400 million from Ethan? Yeah, the idiot transferred it directly. Dealing with Ethan's pathetic first love complex every day is
Making me sick.
He actually believed that love letter story from high school. What a loser. The recording echoed clearly through the crystal chandeliers. The silence that followed was terrifying. Sebastian Ford's face turned green. He immediately took 2 steps back, trying to slip away into the crowd. Where are you going, Mr. Ford? Alexander Vance stepped forward, blocking Sebastian's path with a cold, imposing aura. The Federal Financial Crimes Unit is waiting outside. At that exact moment, the main doors of the ballroom were pushed open again. 4 armed officers from the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the district prosecutor's office marched in, their badges shining under the lights. Claire Summers, Sebastian Ford, the lead agent, declared loudly, pulling out 2 arrest warrants. You are under arrest for multi-jurisdictional financial fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy to embezzle corporate funds, and false prosecution. Come with us. Claire collapsed onto her knees, grabbing Ethan's trousers frantically, her tears smearing her heavy makeup, looking like a terrifying ghost. Ethan, save me. Please save me. Claire shrieked, weeping uncontrollably.
I
Did it because I was broke. I was forced into it by Sebastian. Ethan, you loved me for 18 years. You gave me a love letter. You can't let them take me. Ethan looked down at the woman kneeling at his feet. The delicate, stubborn, pure girl of his high school memories was completely gone, replaced by a grotesque, scheming criminal who had mocked his feelings as a loser's complex. Ethan felt a sudden, violent surge of nausea. He kicked his leg back, shoving Claire away with total disgust. Get away from me, Ethan rasped, his voice trembling with sheer, unadulterated
hatred.
I don't know you, Ethan. Claire screamed as the officers clamped heavy steel handcuffs onto her wrists, dragging her out of the ballroom alongside a silent, scowling Sebastian
Ford.
The scandal was absolute. Within 1 hour, news of Claire Summers' arrest, Sebastian Ford's detainment, and Ethan Carter's monumental foolishness swept across every financial news outlet in the country. Carter Group's stock plunged 30% at the market opening, triggering 2 circuit breakers. Old man Carter suffered an immediate heart attack upon hearing the news and was rushed into emergency surgery, stripping Ethan of all executive privileges on the spot. The ballroom gradually emptied as guests left in hushed, mocking whispers. The glittering venue was now strewn with abandoned wine glasses and fallen flower petals. Ethan stood alone in the center of the vast, empty ballroom.
His tuxedo was
Disheveled, his tie loosened, looking like a ghost standing in a graveyard of his own making. I stood near the entrance, wrapped in a black cashmere coat handed to me by Alexander Vance. Lily. Ethan turned around slowly. His knees buckled, and he took 2 unsteady steps toward me, his eyes filled with a desperate, terrifying hollow light. Lily, I was wrong. Ethan choked out, tears finally spilling over his bloodshot eyes, running down his pale cheeks. I was a fool. I was blinded by a delusion. She lied to me. She lied to me about everything. He reached out his trembling hands, trying to touch the sleeve of my coat. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know she was framing you. Lily, please look at me. We've been married for 3 years. We were happy, wasn't we?
I didn't step back.
I just stood there, looking at him with absolute, unwavering indifference. Happy? I asked softly. Ethan, were we happy?
Or was I just a ghost wearing
white dresses, tending to your ego while you pined for a shadow? Ethan froze. The words hit him harder than any physical blow. I tried to love you, Ethan. I continued, my voice gentle, almost melodic, yet utterly devoid of warmth. For 5 years, I gave you my youth, my dignity, and my family's trust. But you proved to me that 5 years of devotion mean nothing against a dead memory. No, it's not a dead memory. You're the one I love. Ethan fell to his knees on the polished floor, grabbing the hem of my coat, weeping hysterically like a child lost in the dark. I realized it when I saw you in that suit. I realized I don't care about Claire. I care about you. Please, Lily, don't leave me.
I'll
give you back the 400 million. I'll give you my entire share of Carter
Group.
Just give me one more chance, please. I looked down at the man kneeling at my feet. Once, he was the arrogant prince of the Carter family, the boy I had pulled back from the rooftop, the husband I thought I would spend my life with. Now, he was just a pathetic wreck, suffocating in his own late, useless regret. I reached down, gently peeled his fingers off my coat, one by one. It's too late, Ethan. I turned around and walked out of the ballroom into the cool, crisp night air. Behind me, Ethan's agonizing, broken wails echoed through the empty hall, but I didn't turn back once. 3 months later, autumn had arrived in New York. The leaves along Central Park had turned a brilliant, fiery orange and gold. Bennett Group's restructured IPO was a resounding success. On the first day of trading on the New York Stock Exchange, the company's market valuation exceeded $6 billion, making Bennett Group one of the top tech logistics firms in the region. My father's health had fully recovered.
He sat on the patio of our family
estate, sipping tea, smiling happily as he read the financial morning paper. In the state penitentiary upstate, Claire Summers was sentenced to 12 years in prison for grand larceny, financial fraud, and false prosecution. Her petition for bail was rejected 3 times. Sebastian Ford's family business went into forced liquidation to pay off legal fines, stripping the Ford family of their elite standing permanently. As for Carter Group, after paying massive regulatory fines and returning the $400 million with full statutory interest to Bennett Group, its market share shrank by more than 60%. Ethan Carter was permanently ousted from the board of directors. He didn't go to jail, but he lost everything that made him who he was: his fortune, his reputation, his family's pride, and the woman who had genuinely loved him. Reportedly, he spent his days living in a small, rented apartment near our old high school, drinking heavily, wandering around the old campus sports field, staring at the empty trash bins where his 18-year-old delusion had begun. Late afternoon, I stepped out of the Bennett Group headquarters building, wearing a sleek, cream-colored trench coat, my short hair catching the warm autumn breeze. A sleek black Bentley pulled up smoothly to the curb. The window rolled down, revealing Alexander Vance's sharp, handsome face.
He
smiled, holding out 2 tickets to an opera show at the Lincoln Center. "Ready to go, Chairwoman Bennett?" Alexander asked, his tone warm and respectful. I smiled, feeling a sense of absolute lightness in my chest that I had never experienced before. The white dresses were gone. The long hair was gone. The painful, suffocating shadow of being someone else's substitute was washed away forever. I opened the car door, stepped inside, and looked forward into the bright, endless horizon of my own life. "Yes," I said softly. "Let's go."